Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive EV live on YouTube. I've missed you all. I'm sorry it's been a couple weeks since the last live stream. I've been incredibly sick with a sinus infection, and we've had internet problems. I hope we've gotten them all fixed, but I apologize in advance if there is some lag or some streaming issues today. I'm doing everything I can to prevent that from happening, but sometimes you can only test so many things, and then once you put it to the real pedal to the metal public live stream, that's when things stop working. But I'm very excited to talk about the expansion that has been confirmed now for GigaShanghai, that I'm very confused why the market didn't respond more positively to this. You know, when people ask me about Tesla stock or the public perception of Tesla, I've always said from the beginning that it never makes sense to me. The stock market, the stock will tank when great news is announced, and it'll go up when horrible news is dropped. Like, it makes no sense to me. This is one of those situations where I'm like, I don't know why more people don't highlight this news, because it seriously is a much bigger impact than I think people realize. They just kind of gloss over it because it's a number. But I reported on it a few months ago. Reuters reported an exclusive that Tesla was planning on expanding with a whole second facility at GigaShanghai that would increase production capacity by another 500,000 vehicles a year, which is an insane number of EVs if you think for a moment that, like, Ford will not deliver 500,000 EVs this year. They will deliver less than that. And we're talking about just expanding that many EVs at one factory. Not to mention the ramp up of Giga Texas and Giga Berlin going on. So most of the timelines from what I've read are not super clear on how long this expansion is going to take. But I assume if it's anything like the initial facility that went up in China, this could go from dirt and mud in a field to an operational factory within less than 12 months. And from all their learnings, like they talked about at the last earnings call, from their experience of ramping up production, they expect that Giga Texas, Giga Berlin, and probably this next generation Giga Shanghai facility can go from, initial early production to fully ramped in like 9 months, maybe a little bit longer. The reason I consider this such a big deal is because the chart on Tesla's shareholder deck is already dated. So they've talked about how Giga Shanghai has now started to outproduce Fremont. And on their shareholder deck, it still says that Shanghai is, I guess it's not completely dated, but all they've said is it's over 450,000 a year, which is, I guess accurate. It's a little bit of an understatement, but Fremont is currently surpassing 600,000 vehicle run rate per year, and that includes around 100,000 Model S and X, which are very, very high margin, now with the screen tilting kit. I'm sure they'll get a huge surge in orders because everyone wants a swivel screen in their Model S and X. But Model 3 and Y are over 500,000 out of Fremont, and more recent reports are claiming that Fremont has now expanded their capacity and is now running 10-20% higher than their targeted capacity, which is great. It's what Elon said at both Cyber Rodeo and shareholders meetings, is that they want to continue to expand Fremont, not shut it down, despite people suggesting otherwise. But they've since said that Giga Shanghai is building more vehicles than Fremont is. So I think with the current facilities in place and just more optimized capacity and increased production and increased orders from suppliers, pending that they can work around the Chinese government and their restrictions, I do think that the current Shanghai facility can come close to hitting 1 million vehicles per year. And now we're getting confirmation from Tesla that they are expanding Giga Shanghai, basically with a new facility that is the equivalent to a whole new Gigafactory. It just happens to be in the same location, which honestly probably makes the most amount of sense. Before, people were asking, like, when is Tesla going to announce a new Gigafactory? What location are they going to put it in? I kept saying it probably makes the most amount of sense if you have two Gigafactories in the United States. North America is not as large a car market as Asia, so might as well have two Gigafactories running in China, because you already got permits there. You've already got legal operations of of deliveries and factories and service and superchargers ramping up and that kind of thing. So I kept saying, I don't know where in China, maybe Beijing or that kind of thing, but put in another gigafactory there because Asia is the largest car market. So if Tesla wants to stay true to their mission statement, accelerate the transition to EVs, build as many as you can, deliver as many as you can, ramping up production there would probably be the most logical. But I don't know the logistics of China location-wise. I do know that most of the population of China is all on the East Coast, whereas in the United States, you have a lot of people on the West, a lot of people on the East, and even a decent number in the middle. So it makes sense to have the factories a bit more spread out in the United States. Maybe in China, there's fairly little to no advantages to building a separate factory in Beijing because they already have a bunch of suppliers and all of the assembly lines. And yeah, there's a lot of benefits to manufacturing in China that I don't think people realize. It's not just, it's not as simple as just building a building. You know, like if you build a warehouse and you fill it with robots that and people that build your product. Like some people are like, well, we should just build it in America. Just build a warehouse here and assemble it there. It's like, that's not the only advantage of building in China is that it can be done cheaper. It's also just the layout of circuitry, especially when it comes to semiconductors and chips and logic boards. The layout of that in China is so well optimized. There's so much suppliers and infrastructure built for all of those tiny electronics components and displays and chips and semiconductors all aligned so close together that especially when you're building something that requires a lot of electronics like Tesla does, putting it in one singular place and just maybe like, you know, the supplier for the transistors or the supplier for Tesla's displays or even the full self-driving computer is probably manufactured in China. Or, of course, the batteries from CATL, lithium iron phosphate, which they said was nearly half of the batteries delivered in the last quarter. I expect that to grow. I think over time that will eventually become... I think Elon mentioned that in an earnings call as well. He said they'll eventually get to the point where it's like 60 or 70% of all EVs are done with LFP. And, of course, those are manufactured in China, probably closer to Shanghai than Beijing. So if you are going to expand capacity in China, legality-wise, it is probably much faster to do it at the same facility at Shanghai. But the amazing thing about that is that if they're already outproducing Fremont, which is over 600,000, and I think as the run rate continues to improve at Shanghai, it'll get close to 1 million. Now they're going to be adding to that 1 million an additional 450,000 facility, which is, again, what they claimed GigaShanghai is at now, and of course it beats that. So I personally could see GigaShanghai basically hitting that 1.5 million vehicles built per year, likely by the end of 2023. So you're not going to utilize that full 1.5 million vehicles right away, like tomorrow or even next year. But I think 2024 is when you'll likely start to see like 1.5 million production capacity, year to year, January 1st to December 31st, assuming no shutdowns and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't understand why more people don't realize that as a huge advantage. There's so many people distracted by, oh, this new company announced some plan for their new model and that's exciting, or they started building this. It's like, no one is talking about expanding capacity as much as Tesla is. You know, some of them are talking about new factories and wanting to ramp up production and maybe hit, Ford is hoping to hit 600,000 EVs by the end of next year. Whereas Tesla just announced that one factory is going to do 500,000, and that factory is probably going to go up in like 12 months or 18 months, and then it's at full run rate, probably close to 500,000. Like, think about this. Giga Berlin is targeted with its current installed capacity to hit 500,000 in under a year. It's already started, so the time is already the clock is already ticking on that one. And then Giga Texas is at that same capacity before Cybertruck. It's targeted for 500,000 vehicles, 500,000 Model Ys per year, and they said that would take under a year to hit. So we got 1 million from those two factories. And that's not talking about those expansion, which I'm sure Giga Texas and Giga Berlin will expand over time as well. But okay, you got 1 million installed right there Fremont is coming up on, 600, 700,000 a year. And now Giga Shanghai, probably start of 2024, is going to be at like 1.5 million run rate per year. You're talking 2.7, we're talking like 4 million EVs potentially delivered by 2024. I actually think that's fairly possible. I guess if they're 50% growth rate. Hey, Mohammed, thanks for supercharging the channel. Appreciated it. He says, getting my Model X Plaid on Saturday. Wow! That's awesome. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. Let me know if you want to meet up. I have been trying to schedule a test drive with Tesla for a refreshed. I don't even need it to be Plaid. I've just been trying to schedule a Model S or X test drive for the longest time, but they don't want to do them. They're not offering test drives. So I want to meet up with someone. I'm not willing to spend like $1,000 on a Turo because I've had so many I've read so many bad stories and had bad experiences with Turo rentals. But I would love to check it out. That's basically the refreshed Model X is like my dream vehicle. That's like amazing. Um, China's permits don't take forever, unlike America. Correct. Tesla can build very, very quickly in China, as they've already proven. Gustavo says, I have a feeling the Cybertruck will be delayed and delayed at the end. They will come up with an entirely different design. I agree with the first thing you said. I don't think they're going to go with an entirely different design. I don't believe it's the design that's the holdup. Tesla has openly said why they've delayed the Cybertruck. It's not that it's a complex design that they can't figure out how to mass produce. Excuse me, I'm still working through this cold. Oh, sorry, the sinus infection. I think the run rate by year end will already be near 4 million. I guess we're getting close to that. I don't see Giga Shanghai hitting 1.5 million this year or next, but maybe near maybe near the end of next year. But it has continued to ramp. Elon said on the last call Giga Shanghai would come back with a vengeance, and he's not kidding. I think like the total number of EVs Tesla builds this year, like the total delivered, all of 2022, with all the new factories and all the Model Ys and all the S's and X's, all of these vehicles delivered will be equivalent to the number of vehicles Tesla China can build within a single year in probably the next 18 months. That's the run rate Shanghai will be at, which is insane to me. Whereas can China long term? I feel like there's greater risk by not being active in China. I know there's downsides to the Chinese government being more locked down and having restrictions, but Tesla's goal is to accelerate the world's transition, not America's transition or Europe's transition. And most of the cars in the world are in Asia. You got to work with them. There's no way around that. You can't avoid it. And yes, there's headaches of dealing with the Chinese government, no doubt. I don't deny that, but the benefits are also extremely apparent as well. Like the fact that you can build there so quickly and you don't need to deal with the amount of permits and regulation that Giga Berlin does, and with how efficient the suppliers are there, and the fact that so many LFP batteries are good. I think probably indefinitely most of the world's LFP batteries are going to be built in China. Even as we expand battery production in the United States and in Europe, China already has LFP battery production and is going to continue to expand in China. And because they can grow facilities and grow manufacturing so quickly, they will continue to be. It makes sense that Giga Shanghai will be the main export hub for Teslas. It's going to become so infinitely cheap to build EVs in China that it will be far cheaper to build them there and ship them to other countries than it will be to actually build factories there. Like, it's part of the reason I don't think Canada needs their own gigafactory. I don't think Australia needs their own gigafactory. It's like, sure, you would save some money by not having to ship your vehicles overseas, but the amount of money you'd save by building the vehicle there would not be as cost saving as just building that vehicle in China and importing it. Why isn't it called Giga Texas? Shouldn't it be called Giga Austin? I've heard it both ways. The reason I call it Giga Texas is because that's what it seems to be on paper. At least when you're there at the facility, they have Giga Texas written on things. Um, they have different terminology. New factory, yeah. I'm looking at the shareholder deck right now. I guess I can show it to you. But yeah, here they say Gigafactory Texas, and there's things all on the walls there that say Giga Texas. So I just figured legality wise, that's what it's called. They call it Texas, not Austin. Um, I don't know why it's inconsistent, but yeah, we still we still call it Giga Texas, I guess. I don't know. It probably sounds better because you don't have two A's next to each other. I also call it Giga Berlin, even though Tesla calls it Giga Berlin Brandenburg. That's just too many syllables to me, so I don't know. As long as you get the point across, people know what you're referring to. Um, Scott says it's not technically in Austin either, so that might be part of the reason. Um, I think they will tweak the design a lot because it's so ugly. It's because I didn't realize we were having so many beauty pageants with our pickup trucks. Do all the pickup truck owners get together and talk about how pretty your F-150 is? Oh my god, it's so gorgeous. I love the wheel wells. I love the trim. It's so nice. No, I don't think beauty is a big factor in pickup truck buyers. But Cybertruck has more reservations than any other truck. So if you want to put it up to the people and say the vehicle that drives the most attention is the best looking one, um, Cybertruck would win the poll. Cybertruck would win the award for most iconic, recognizable. I think it's beautiful personally, but um, I completely admit that beauty is in the eye of the beholder and it's entirely subjective. Arguing which truck looks the coolest or looks the prettiest is kind of ridiculous. That's never been what's dictated the best-selling truck. It's always just been the one that prioritized the features pickup truck owners were interested in. Um, only the EV ones, right? Because the Hummer is so gorgeous, right? That's why so many people want the Hummer. No, like I think that Tesla is excited and eager to start producing the Cybertruck. They just realized that uh, they can't do it right now because it would not be true to their mission statement. That's kind of the hard pill to swallow right now that I've been trying to explain to a lot of people. I think there's a lot of confusion around Tesla's mission statement as well. Um, I try my best to explain this, but it's hard to find the right words. Beauty is strangely a big factor in marketing. Guess what Tesla doesn't pay for? Tesla didn't run a single commercial during the Super Bowl, but they got a huge surge in orders during the Super Bowl because all their competitors kept referencing them. Um, they're not delaying the Cybertruck or changing it because it's ugly. Honestly, I think the prototype looks prettier than the production model they've showcased. I would rather it not have the windshield wiper and no side view mirrors and not have a driver display. I like the I'm okay with no door handles though. That's fine. But that's just me. I know legality wise and for practical reasons, of course, they have to have mirrors and a windshield wiper and stuff. But I just mean that uh, it's captivated a huge audience, larger than any other vehicle I've ever seen before. You don't hear about other vehicles raking in over 1 million reservations. That does not happen. That is incredibly rare. Um, it's basically never happened before. And the Cybertruck is like surpassing 2 million. So I don't think most people online that I interact with can truly gauge or understand the demand problem. I don't think no matter how many ways I word it in the comment section and on Reddit and on Twitter, no matter what way I word it, people do not realize there is way more demand than there is supply for. Like, we're excited, and I'm talking about this live stream about GigaShanghai hitting 1.5 million vehicles per year, and the Cybertruck has over 2 million reservations. Shouldn't that open up your eye a little bit and say, okay, Elon said their target was to do maybe 200,000 or 250,000 Cybertrucks a year. If they shut off the reservation page right now, and okay, let's say half of those reservations don't go through because the price is worse or other trucks come out first, whatever, so people back out on their Cybertruck order. Okay, 50% of those reservations are canceled and they don't take any more orders. It would still take 5 to 6 years for Tesla to catch up on Cybertruck demand. That's unreasonable. That's not a good situation to be in. If you want to know what happens when you have that kind of demand and not enough supply, look at the PS5 market. Look at the Xbox market. What happens is you get scalpers, you get people willing to pay a huge premium to get it sooner because the wait times are too long, and then what happens is you end up with people buying the vehicle that aren't even interested in the vehicle. They're just trying to make a profit. So it just becomes another way to store value, and it's just, that doesn't really help the situation. So Tesla has to intentionally basically get as many people to back out of their Cybertruck order as possible, while still making a vehicle that, you know, can be used and appreciated. That's why I'm expecting the Cybertruck will cost a lot. It will not have range numbers as good as people were hoping, but it doesn't matter because the demand is so crazy high for it, people will pay for it. Like, the Hummer is this extremely expensive, inefficient truck, and yet it got over 65,000 reservations. So these trucks are not competing with each other. If there's an infinite, basically infinite at this point, if there's an infinite number of people willing to buy the truck, it doesn't really matter how it looks. It doesn't matter what the specs are. It doesn't matter how much it costs, because they basically have infinite demand of EV trucks right now. Like, the supply chains for Ford, for Rivian, for GM, the demand is so far ahead of supply, and it's the same thing with Tesla. There's a Cybertruck Owners Club. They have a official reservation counter. That's where I'm getting these numbers. They compare the reservation numbers over time, and people plug in their data on the website. And that's not even a true gauge of demand, because once you have first deliveries, demand goes way up again. That same thing happened with the Model 3. There was a lot of people in the early days that were just like, oh, there's not enough demand for a Model 3, and, you know, I don't think enough people will buy them even at $35,000. Now they're selling for $47,000 starting, more expensive if you go long range, and they're delivering far more than they got reservations for when they first came out. So with the Cybertruck coming out and raking in that much reservations, it gave you a good indication of what the demand is for a vehicle like that. That's what the whole point of having a reservation page is for, is to gauge demand and what people are willing to pay. And what it proved is that there's a huge number of people that want electric trucks. Doesn't matter what they look like. Doesn't matter what the range is. Rivian's proven that. Ford's proven that. They'll sell every single one they can make. We have not reached the point where a company can struggle to find someone to buy an electric truck. That's why I said, like, 50% could cancel. Yeah, I know there's a bunch of people that won't go through their orders. Cybertruck is still going to be better than any competitor because the technology and infrastructure are already there. Yeah, I've done a whole video on that. I think still people took it the wrong way, because my point in that video was not to say that the Cybertruck will kill off the need for any other truck. My point was just that the Cybertruck will still have advantages over other electric trucks. Even if it's expensive and even if the range isn't very good. Like, here's about, like, the supercharging, like the autonomy, like the durability, like the exoskeleton, and the efficiency and the performance. I was like, there's still a bunch of things the Cybertruck will have that other guys can't get. And there's too many people out there that are just like, F-150 Lightning is so truck-like. It's like every other truck. It's so good. That means no one will buy the Cybertruck. And it's like, you clearly have no idea what the demand is, because every electric truck is going to be sold out for years. And that includes the Cybertruck, regardless of how expensive it is. Excuse me. Tesla truck is most advanced, but it's ugly. Because who cares? Beauty is strangely a big factor in marketing. Hummer was based on a military vehicle, and the Cybertruck is based on the future, and that's why it got so many reservations. I think most actual pickup guys would be a bit embarrassed to drive the Cybertruck. Doesn't matter. If the Cybertruck gains way more attention and gets way more reservations than the Lightning does, then who cares if they're first-time pickup truck owners? Doesn't make a difference. There's still people willing to buy it. If he doesn't start filling orders, people will leave. And I'm sure they have. Like I said, Tesla could lose 70% of Cybertruck reservations, and there would still be a 3-year backlog. I think they're counting on the reservations being canceled. It's not a good place for your company to be or your product to have a 6-year backlog. That's not practical. That's going to result in huge amounts of scalping and people buying the product that are just using it to make money, not actually use the product. It's not a good situation. You can't just be like, well, I guess we'll have a 6-year backlog. That's not good. You want to have a reasonable timeline on your product so that you can gauge demand properly and actually have a price that's accurate to what the demand is. So if you can't build enough of them based on there being too much demand, you raise the price up, use that money towards increasing production capacity so that you don't have such a big backlog. Sorry. Excuse me. If you don't produce, who cares? If you don't produce, then yeah, people will go elsewhere. But the way I see most people doing that with the Cybertruck is they're either buying another electric truck to hold them over, but the situation isn't much better there because the wait times are so long, or you buy a Tesla to keep you occupied until the Cybertruck's ready. If they price it at 90 or 100K, I'd bet closer to 30% retention rate. I know I won't follow through with my Cybertruck at that price. I simply can't afford that. I think they know. I think they have to be aware, right? Like Tesla, we've seen how Tesla has risen the prices so much or raised the prices so, I don't know the proper terminology, but Tesla has jumped up prices a ton on Model S and X simply because the demand is too high. And Cybertruck has more demand than any of these vehicles and the smallest amount of supply. You know, Model S and X backlog continues to grow. I believe the Model S long range is now sold out for 2022. And they're using a pre-existing supply chain. They're using 1865 batteries that have been around for a while and that were at max production for several years. And they can't keep up on demand for that, so the price continues to go up. It's like $40,000 higher than it was a couple of years ago. And Cybertruck, they have no supply chains for, because they know the Cybertruck is going to need a steel exoskeleton. It's got to need the structural 4680 batteries, which they're already struggling with the ramp of 4680s, and all the 4680s they build are going towards Model Y. So they're starting from scratch when it comes to the supply chain with the Cybertruck. And yet they have more demand of that truck than basically any other vehicle they're building right now. So the only way you can taper off demand in that case, because their supply is so limited, is to raise the price. That's the only way. So they have to price the Cybertruck accordingly so that you don't have this 4, 5, 6-year backlog. Otherwise, the scalpers just go crazy. And you got to take that profit margin and put it towards expanding capacity. So it's because the Cybertruck requires so many more batteries than most of their vehicles. I don't think the ramp will go as quickly as the ramp does for something like a Model Y or a Model 3. Hopefully, you know, it's going to help a lot that it doesn't have a paint shop and that it could use the exoskeleton to be the mass of the vehicle. That's going to help. So that's why I disagree with the point that they're going to have to change the design entirely. The design is not the reason they're delaying it. The reason they're delaying it is because the Model Y and Model 3 are already high in demand, and they know how to build those already, and they can use their pre-existing suppliers to ramp those. So it stays, honestly, as depressing as it is, delaying the Cybertruck is staying true to their mission statement. It's all about prioritizing deliveries above all. It's not about variety of deliveries, it's about total deliveries for them, which I kind of wish they would stray from their focus a little bit. Honestly, they're so dang focused on deliveries all the time that I'm like, come on, just, you know, just build a couple Roadsters, or, you know, start the Semi. But they're like, nope, this is what achieves our mission statement the fastest. Yeah, like Joe said, getting Model Y now will sell for Cybertruck when it comes out, first-time truck buyer. I know a lot of Tesla fans doing that. Warren Redlick has placed an order and is getting a Model X Plaid, and his plan is to sell the Plaid and get the Cybertruck as soon as it comes out. And he's very much expecting the Cybertruck to be far more expensive than what they said. Yeah, we're on T-Mobile right now, and it seems to be good so far. So hopefully we don't have any more issues. But actually, to go off of what Benjamin was saying, I'm expecting the Cybertruck reservations to be closer to a 20% or 15% retention rate, as in only about 15% of the reservations end up going through. That's still a lot, Like, Elon said they're targeting 250,000 trucks a year. That does not mean day one, as soon as the first Cybertruck gets delivered, they're already at 250,000. Because it's such a different vehicle that has the rear wheel steering and the exoskeleton, the structural pack, the 4680s, I think it will take probably 2 or 3 years before they're able to hit the run rate of 250,000 trucks per year. It's going to take so long for them to get to that point. Um, yeah, they need a ton of people to cancel their order. Otherwise, the situation's terrible. So that's why I'm personally predicting something a little over 300. Maybe the for bragging rights they want to beat the Lightning and they want to beat the Rivian. So they give it like 325, 330 miles of range. Not high, but quad motor, of course. That way they don't have to honor any of the reservations. I've actually reached a point now where I think demand is so high and the Cybertruck is so sought after and there's so much demand behind it that um they're only going to do quad motor. That's my prediction. I don't think they'll ever do a dual motor. There's just not going to be a reason to. The powertrains are so relatively cheap. They really do not cost much to Tesla. They build so many of them. Tesla probably builds more electric motors than any other company on the planet, and they build the most efficient ones, and they've built them at such massive scale. I think quad motor is not that much money. Like, building a dual motor will not save them very much. Just like how Tesla used to have more single motor vehicles. There used to be a rear wheel drive Model S. There used to be a rear wheel drive Model Y. There used to be several rear wheel drive Model 3s, but now they've gotten rid of all of them. Now the only rear wheel drive Tesla is the LFP one. All the rest, even the standard range Model Y, has dual motor. And I think it's because they can justify the price being higher, and it doesn't save them that much to get rid of the motor. Probably the cheapest thing they could do to make the Cybertruck more affordable is switch it to a smaller battery pack. I don't even think it needs to be, excuse me, LFP or 2170 or anything like that. They'll just use lower energy dense batteries. Like the 4680s they're building right now, they could just build that into a truck and charge less and less for it over time. And I think all Cybertrucks will be quad motor. That way, they do not have to honor any of the locked-in FSD prices with the reservations. I don't think any of those are going to be honored. I think all of those reservations are just going to be thrown out, just like the long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y. Do you think the Roadster will come in 2023? Probably not, but I still side by my argument that it should. Like, if they're building 4680s locally at Giga Texas now, and they have a bunch of 4680s being built at Cato Road, which is in Fremont, I say just start hand building. Just do a little side project and start delivering some of those Roadsters. I think it's a good idea. You've got 4680s around. People, I'm just personally sick and tired of hearing about the Roadster so much, and people are like, oh, why do they keep delaying it? They still haven't made the Roadster, though. So people keep saying, like, Tesla can't do anything because they haven't delivered the Roadster yet. I'm just like, okay, it would be such a small dent on the battery supply thing, though. That's why I think they should just rip the Band-Aid, get the Roadster over with, just start building those things. It doesn't have to be high volume. Like, everyone brags about the Rimac Nevera being so cool, and I'm like, they're building like 150 of those things total. I think they're building like 2 a month. Okay, just make a little side assembly line at Fremont and build like, 10 Roadsters a month. It doesn't have to be a lot. Like 2 a week. It can be, give it that. Honestly, at the end of the day, like, other than the SpaceX package and the cold gas thrusters, I don't think the Roadster should be that difficult a vehicle relative to the Plaid Model S, which I feel like has more complexity because it's like a 4-door family sedan with the hatchback and the tilting screen and the display in the back and the seats in the back. And like, you could easily scrap the 4-seater Roadster and just make it a 2-seater. It's got 2 doors. It's got a big, massive battery pack. It can be structural. It can be 4680 or whatever. And give it the Plaid powertrain that you're already mass producing at Fremont. And call it a day. Like I think relative to all the other complex things Tesla has built, the Roadster would not be that hard, especially if you're doing it at low volume. Yeah, there's so many people that paid for Roadsters already. It's like they've been waiting so long. Excuse me. Out of all the things on the Cybertruck, I bought it for the 500-mile range, and I live on a farm. I know it. I can't tell you how many freaking comments I got on my last Cybertruck video just about, I need that range. I want the 500 range. That's the main reason I got it. It's like, I know. I hear you. I don't think you guys understand the demand problem. Like, they have so many freaking orders for this thing. They are nowhere close to being able to match it. It's going to take them years to be able to match 10% of their reservation rate. And again, the demand for the vehicle typically goes higher with Teslas. It always goes higher once deliveries begin. There will be a new wave of demand once you start delivering the vehicle and people start realizing, oh, this is a real thing. It's not a concept. It's not a future aspirational thing. Like, there's so much pent-up demand for it. And, the Hummer has over 60,000 reservations. The Rivian has a multi-year backlog, as does the F-150 Lightning. None of those guys are offering 400-mile range. Excuse me. I know the Rivian is talking about theoretically doing one, but they've gone very quiet on the max battery pack, and they don't want to provide much of a timeline on it. And honestly, I was reading through the Rivian subreddits today, and a lot of people think that the max battery is going to be scrapped entirely because Rivian is so inefficient with their spending right now. And what they need to focus on, and what they are focusing on, is delivering as many vehicles as possible. And the max battery pack is not going to help maximize production rates. So I know there's a lot of people out there that want the high range. You want 400, you want 500 because it sounds good, and it's good for towing, and it's good for cold weather and whatnot. I'm not trying to deny there are advantages. I think that's the other problem, is when I keep saying Tesla's not going to do a 500-mile range truck, everyone goes, yeah, but I need one, though. It's like, that's not the point. The point is we have a very, very finite number of batteries relative to how many people want to buy an EV. So to act like a large company mass producing a vehicle should start hoarding all of those cells and putting them into a very small number of vehicles is just not practical with the production ramp. Their goal is going to be to build as many trucks as possible. And they're going to be able to build a heck of a lot more Cybertrucks if they equip them with 300 miles of range instead of 500. So that's what ultimately I think they're going to prioritize, for the same reason that we used to think, when they talked about 4680s at Battery Day and they talked about the range benefits and the weight savings and stuff, we all thought, oh, okay, so when Texas starts building a Model Y, we're going to get a long range, 420 miles or over 400 miles of range. It's going to be this great, super capable, super efficient, super lightweight Model Y. Then the thing finally came out. It's a standard range. It's not that efficient either. It's about the same weight. Why did they do that? It's not because I think the 4680s are like fundamentally flawed. I don't think it's because they're throwing in a bunch of extra weight for no reason. It's because they chose to make those batteries less energy dense so that they would be cheaper to build, but more importantly than keeping them cheap, they could scale them faster. So just like they are starting with a smaller battery pack Model Y, I expect a smaller battery pack Cybertruck, even if it's not, even if it's a bunch of people don't find it a good deal. That's what we need right now. We need less people willing to buy Cybertrucks. I don't think most people would want a Cybertruck without 500-mile range. Well, according to Cybertruck's Owners Club on their polls, the tri-motor was I think 42% of reservations, which means most of the people reserving the Cybertruck were not opting for the 500-mile range. But my point is, look at the already flourishing electric truck space. F-150 Lightning is sold out for years of capacity. Like, they got way more orders than they can build for years. None of those trucks go over 400. All of those trucks are either 300-mile range or 200-mile range. And same thing with the Rivian. Rivian is delivering tons of vehicles right now. People love them. People who get them are super happy with them. Tons of reservations coming in. Uh-oh. Sorry, T-Mobile's freaking out. I hope it can recover. Dang it. I did a stream test and it didn't freak out. Now that I go public, it wants to freak out. Ugh, I know. It looks really bad. It's very compressed. Here, I'll pause the playback thing, see if that helps. Um, all these electric trucks that are delivering right now, none of them have 400, 500 miles of range. So there's clearly a market for people who are willing to spend big money on electric trucks with 300 miles of range. So I don't expect the Cybertruck to be any different. If anything, the Cybertruck can actually get away with way less range because it has a supercharging network. Since you can take the Cybertruck to any supercharger, I think people would be more comfortable with a 300-mile range Cybertruck than they would a 300-mile range Rivian. And that's what's delivering right now. They could just outsource the Roadster, is what Gustavo says. Maybe. I don't know if that would be a good look, but might as well if it's possible. It can be done affordably. Tim Watson says, I agree to damper range expectations, and honestly, 400 miles will be enough with the exponential growth of the supercharger network. I think 400 is more than enough. I think they'd be fine with a 300-mile range Cybertruck. Frankly, they could probably get by with less. I mean, the F-150 Lightning got way more interest and way more reservations than the Rivian did, and that's shipping with 230 miles of range. I don't necessarily think that's what they'll do, but I do think that Tesla could probably sell a 230-mile range Cybertruck at high price, and it would still sell. I'm expecting they get to my Tri-Motor reservation 4 months after they release it, and I wonder what their response will be about 500. 4 months? No, Matthew. I'm very, very sorry. I hope I'm wrong on this, but I'm fairly confident in telling you they're not going to do the Tri-Motor. I think they're just going to do quad motor, and they're not going to honor any FSD pricing that was previously locked in or whatever. And I expect the response to be the same as the Plaid Model S. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Should Tesla add a screen in front of driver 3 and Y? I don't think so, personally. It's probably just going to complicate manufacturing, and I've driven Model 3s and Ys. I don't really miss the speedometer behind the wheel, to be honest. I don't think it's that useful. Whether I look down like this or to the side like this, it takes the same amount of time. I don't feel like looking at the center display is more dangerous. Both the Model 3 and Model Y are selling at insane volume, and they have plenty of demand. So even if you think that they should add the screen in front of the driver because it would be nicer and more people would want to buy it, is like, there's already too many people buying it. So even if your argument is it would increase demand, that's not what they need right now. But personally, having driven without it, I do not miss it at all. I've never gotten in the Model 3 or Y and started driving and been like, "Aw, I wish I could look through the steering wheel and see my speed." Honestly, I found the speed a lot easier to read on a Tesla than my current car, because most cars have the analog dials, and you look at the needle and where the needle is and where the number's next to it. Whereas on the Tesla, you just got a big number. It's a lot easier to see. Even if it's not directly down, that's just a tradition thing. You're just used to it being there. But as soon as I got in the car, I was like, okay, I look there. I'm not going to look at something that isn't there. So I don't think they need to add it. No, I don't think it's a good idea. Why do legacy companies still run ads when they are sold out for years? That's a great question, FizzWizzle. I keep getting commercials for an ID4 or a EV6 or the Ioniq 5. I see commercials for these vehicles, and I'm like, you can't build enough of those things. Why are you advertising them? There's like no point to spending money on advertising when you don't have the product available. Like, I don't get it. Let's see, Chevy Silverado EV? What about it? I know they say they're going to do 400, but how many are they going to make? Like 20? GM is not taking EVs very seriously in my mind, which is why it's like, yeah, that the more you think about doing 400, 500 mile range EVs, the more you realize that it's not a very practical approach to ramping production. If we get to a point where the story would be completely different, if we got to a point where people were not buying EVs, and the main reason we were like, hey, we're building our electric cars right now, but no one's buying them. And then we ask non-EV owners, hey, why aren't you buying a vehicle? If their response is, because the range isn't high enough. that would be a different story. Okay, now it makes sense. Let's do 400, 500, 600 mile range EVs because the thing preventing more people from buying them is the fact that the range isn't good enough. But that's not what's happening. Right now, the range is between 200, 300 miles for most EVs, and we can't build enough of them. There's a tremendous backlog for all of them, and we're delivering more than we've ever delivered. Between Tesla and all other EV companies, they're delivering them as fast as they can. And when you see where the demand is, you realize that putting a bunch of extra spare batteries in a car so it can go 400, 500 miles isn't really helping much. It caters to a very specific demographic that will be happy about it, yeah, but it doesn't help accelerate the transition any faster, and it kind of hurts your efficiency for most driving. Most people are not doing excuse me. Most people are not doing cross-country road trips every day. Most people are not towing great distances in the winter. Sure, they exist. I'm not denying they exist, but when it comes to transitioning EVs, you're going to start with the most common use cases and work your way outward. It's like, okay, we want to make a vehicle that will be the most practical for the largest number of people, and that's what Tesla's doing with the 3 and Y, and that's what's selling so well. Model 3 was the best-selling car of any kind, not just electric vehicle. It was the best-selling car in Europe back in March. Outsold every combustion engine. Which is another amazing thing, is that basically Tesla has designed the Model 3 and Y, which honestly have a ton of similarities. They're almost the same car a lot with how many parts they share. Tesla's practically designed like one type of vehicle that has quickly escalated to multi-million deliveries within a few years. It's quite astounding. There isn't a good market for long-range EVs. The gas car is still the road trip king. I would still rather have a road trip in an EV than a gas car. I would say more the EVs have not prioritized the smaller use cases of driving, which makes sense because we have finite supply. If you don't have very many batteries and you don't have enough materials to ramp EVs, you're not going to specialize in the niche markets like cross-country towing or long distance drives in the cold. I mean, Norway's cold and they're at like 60% EV adoption. When the range increases, you will see more adoption. It's not cause and effect though. There are more ice cream sales in summer. There's also more crime in summer. That doesn't mean ice cream causes crime. It's a cause and effect thing. You're not getting more. You're not seeing EVs adopt faster because of lack of range. It's because of lack of batteries. That's the limiting factor. Lack of production capacity is the reason EVs aren't adopting faster. Although it should be noted, EVs are growing incredibly quickly, even with their limited supplies. They're finite. Tesla's grown faster than any other car company I've ever seen. I can't wait until BMW starts doing EV-only platforms instead of just using the same platform for the ICE vehicles. Yeah, it's not a good idea. It's not. They don't convert that well. Mohammed says I still get Mach-E ads. Heard the new Ryzen chip has a port for a second screen. Thoughts? I saw that from Green the Only. I'm not sure if I think they're going to do anything with it. If they were going to put a secondary display in the Model 3 and Y, I think what would be far more likely is for them to put the screen in the back for the rear seat passengers. As soon as they add that to the Model S and X, I was like, yeah, that's something I could see them adding just because it's nice to have the HVAC controls for the back seat people and the heated seat options so that you don't have to tell the person in front. That's the only thing. I didn't see them adding the display to the driver in the 3 and Y. That doesn't make sense to me. Yes, range, absolutely, Tim. Range is not the limiting factor. Let's see. I can't wait. Oh, I already read that. Everyone freaks out about Model 3 not having the speedometer behind the steering wheel, but no one talks about the Prius' speedometer, which in my opinion is in a terrible spot. I've never driven a Prius. I don't know where it is. But I get why people are taken off by it at first when they get in a Model 3 or Y. It's very different. I just happen to be the kind of guy that likes that type of thing. I love when interiors or design goes in the complete opposite direction of expectation and just says, no, we're gonna do something else because this makes more sense. And I thought putting everything on the Tesla display made the most amount of sense. It helps with manufacturing efficiency. helps with the cost of production, helps them ramp faster, and those are all very, very important things for Tesla. So non-Tesla EVs in America are a problem for road tripping due to Electrify America being out of order. I don't think they're out of order 80% of the time, but I do think that there's not enough emphasis being put into the charge network. Um, excuse me. Range is not a major limiting factor. It is a side limiting factor. Range is a side factor of assuming there's a demand limitation. So it's like one aspect. There's several things that could be the root of a demand limitation. Price, I think, is a bigger one than range. The main reason I don't think range is even a big worthy issue is because on average most people driving go like 30, 40 miles a day, and more people are working from home now, so even that number has likely gone down. So yes, there's cold climates where your range is cut in half, but even with a low range Model 3, your range cut in half will still cover the daily commute of most Americans. Um, and absolutely, yeah, Electrify America has far less stations than Tesla does. So that's, I think, probably the main reason Tesla sell at such great volume is because they have more superchargers. But uh, once there's less of a battery constraint, it would start to make sense for more companies to do longer range vehicles or EVs that are much better at towing. Right now, especially when you're a startup, especially when you're first ramping a product like a F-150 Lightning or a Rivian, there's so little reason to prioritize the high range ones. That's just going to slow down your ramp so much. It's going to eat into your margins a lot more, and it's only going to be it's going to make your vehicle less efficient for daily driving. Again, most driving is around 30, 40, maybe 50 miles a day. That covers like 90% of driving. There's exceptions to that. I'm not saying that's everyone. I'm just saying when that's most driving, carrying around all those extra batteries means that your vehicle is less efficient for the 90% of driving because you're carrying around all of these extra batteries that you're not even using. So yes, in the specific use case of I need to tow a big payload a great distance, having that extra range is nice. But again, that aspect of driving is a very small percentage of total driving. What ICE car company is your... Oh. Why you gotta retract the message? I was gonna read it. Um, let's see, I don't want to talk about Apple stuff in here. This is the EV. We'll be live on tech later. EV road trips are the ultimate value choice. Quick stops with gas car or cheaper, longer stops with EV. Inflation is causing people to choose the second option. I think it's just nicer. I don't even think it's really that EVs are cheaper. I don't really buy into the concept that Teslas or EVs sell better because they're more affordable. At least we're not there yet. I think it's just more enjoyable. Like, sure, gas is expensive, but I think the main reason people don't want to pay for gas anymore is because it's so much more convenient to just charge from home, and you don't want to have to deal with the rush of like. Every time I get gas, it's so annoying. It's like a big line of people there, and you got to move as quickly as you can, and you got to spill gas on the ground and swipe the card and everything. And there's just something so much more elegant about driving a vehicle that's quiet and smooth, and there's no transmission, and it's it's more efficient, and excuse me. I don't think it's really that they're cheaper at this point. Like we might get to a point where it's cheaper, but insurance for EVs is typically quite a bit more, and charging has gone up in price as well, and the upfront cost of EVs is up there. So I get it. Like after the long haul, you start to measure how much you've saved on gas, and you might start to break even. But with the Model 3 starting at $47,000 and the Model Y starting at $63,000, I'm like, I don't really think it's that they're cheaper. I don't think it's the cost saving. I think it's just more enjoyable to own. It's like people will spend more money on the vehicle if it's more comfortable. They want a Tesla because it could do a lot of the driving itself, and it feels more like a modern, it actually feels like the product was designed the way your phone is designed, with an emphasis on software and not so much, dated business model of here's the button and you fill it up with gas and you get the oil changes and you get the, people don't like all this car maintenance stuff, and EVs just have substantially less they have to worry about. So yeah, I personally just don't think I don't think it's a cost savings argument yet. It's just a quality of life thing. It's more fun to own an EV, even if it is more expensive. Range is a good standout factor. When I saw the Lucid Air have over 500 miles, I almost canceled my Model X Plaid and switched, even though I don't drive nowhere near that much in a week. Well, I get that it's a great standout factor. It gets massive street credit. I mean, I think so many people give all of this credit and faith to Lucid just for the fact that they made a 500-mile range EV. Doesn't change where their business is, though. Doesn't change the fact that they're struggling to produce more than 100 vehicles a month. And they're substantially low on cash compared to Rivian. And they're burning through so much money right now. And they're struggling to ramp up. It's like, yeah, you could go all out and make a really, really solid product. But if your company goes bankrupt over it, it's not very useful. Like the sheer difference in production between a Tesla or a Mercedes EQS or a Porsche Taycan, how many vehicles they're building compared to Lucid is insane. Drew, you will change your tune once you get the car. Well, what am I going to change my tune on? My point is that it's more fun to own an EV, not that it's necessarily more affordable. Like right now, it costs $35 a month to insure my car. Tesla insurance is not going to be $35 a month. I guarantee you, it's probably going to be 110, $120 a month where I live. Uh, Model 3 insurance under travelers is $100 a month. I'll pay less in gas, but I'll absolutely pay more in insurance. And I would have to drive this vehicle for a long time before the upfront cost of $50,000 was cheaper than just paying for gas. Excuse me. Range does help you stand out, but standing out is not really what you need right now, in my opinion. Um, do you agree that Elon should spend that 44 billion on Tesla instead of Twitter? Maybe build another factory. Tesla's building factories as quickly as they possibly can. It's not a money problem. I think that's the bigger issue people have is it's again that very simple-minded approach to a factory is just a big concrete slab with walls and ceiling. Once you build building, you can build more cars with fact. It's all of a supply chain issue. It's about getting suppliers in the right place and securing contracts with nickel and lithium. And if you don't have enough suppliers for that, it doesn't matter if you have 18 warehouses the size of Giga Texas, even if they're the biggest building in the world. If you don't have the suppliers for it, it doesn't matter. Tesla's ramping faster than any car company is right now, and it's not a money issue. It's not something you can just throw billions of dollars at. Tesla's getting into the mining business. Tesla's ramping production of the factories. No, I don't agree that I don't think the 44 billion would have just magically fixed. I think Tesla spends a lot. I don't think they're sitting on a bunch of cash that they could do more with. I think they're doing everything they can with what they got. Hope you're having a good week. Saw you went live. Thought I'd pop in. Want to come down to San Diego and drive by Ford Lightning? Dealer called yesterday and said the first one will be in May 23rd. Ooh, really? I would love to. That sounds amazing. Reach out to me via Twitter or Discord if you can, because yes, absolutely. I would love to check out the Lightning if possible. Let's see. You save $10,000 in gas over every 100,000 miles. That's only, well, yeah, that $10,000 is going to be utilized a lot faster or slower depending on how much you drive. It's going to take me a very, very long time to drive 100,000 miles. Yeah, battery range is not a factor once we have better charging market. Yeah, Peter Rawlinson himself has even said that. He was like, in the future, EVs probably won't go 400, 500 miles on a charge because the charging network will be so good. I was like, so why are you bragging so much about the high range if you're admitting that later on that's probably not going to matter? It's like, it's a shame because Lucid's powertrain team is really solid. Like, they've made an incredibly efficient motor that's very small, very compact, and just sips power with the higher voltage architecture of the Lucid. Like, that's amazing. But the Lucid Air is heavier than a Tesla. So the overall vehicle, relative to its weight, is very efficient, yes, but it's still less efficient than like a rear-wheel drive Model 3 because they chose to pack like a giant 120 kilowatt hour battery pack, which adds a ton to the weight, literally tons to the weight. And if Lucid were to make a 250-mile range or 280-mile range vehicle, they would get astoundingly good efficiency. And I think it would be just as good. Like, okay, it's kind of nice to not have to stop for 6 hours on a road trip, but I just mean the efficiency numbers you could get on a Lucid with a substantially smaller battery pack would be insane. But they keep emphasizing we gotta have 400, we gotta have 500 miles of range. It's gotta be far. It's like, okay, even though you admit that that's not gonna be a thing. Um, well, it's not that they even need a better battery pack, is they need a smaller one. It's like just try to make a more efficient design instead of super high range, which I think is not as useful as they realize. Um, it is seen as a negative to gas cars. It is like sitting an extra hour of traffic when you travel. Well, first of all, with superchargers, most supercharging stops are not 1 hour. You don't charge till you're at 100%. You charge until you can get to the next stop. That's just the most efficient way of charging batteries. Most supercharging stops on road trips are like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. They're not an hour. And you can typically use that time to go to the restroom, get a snack, get some food. Everyone I've talked to who's done road trips with EVs has not felt like the supercharging was this huge burden. They've Most people I've talked to have said that the gas stops are very hectic and stressful because you have to hurry. Quick, get in time, get quick. Oh, the gas pump's almost gone. We gotta go, run. Let's gotta hit on the road again. It's kind of like the Concorde. The Concorde was much faster, but it was more expensive, and didn't didn't end up lasting in the end for lots of reasons. But the primary reason was most people would rather take a slower trip that was cheaper, and I think that same thing is going to apply with EVs. Is like, for one, it's not that much slower. Um, for two, it's substantially cheaper than paying for gas on a road trip, and it's substantially more comfortable to know you have 10, 15, 20 minutes instead of 5, and you can just plug in, take your time, and relax. And of course, the car's driving itself, and you don't have to worry about uh, carbon monoxide being pumped into the atmosphere and that kind of thing. Any worry that Ford is not raising prices on Lightning? I'm concerned about the margin slash profitability. Be curious to see what the maintenance schedule is for the Lightning to keep dealers happy. Yeah, I think Ford is in so much debt they don't really care that they're not profitable. But they've openly said that now. They've said that they don't expect to be profitable on any of their EVs, so that they're openly losing money on every vehicle they sell. Um, but Ford hasn't been profitable for a while, so I don't think they really care. They're just about maintaining their brand because Ford is so well established and so politically involved, and they have so much, involvement with the administration and with unions that they know Ford doesn't need to make a profit. They can just keep burning through cash. They'll get bailed out if they need to. They're too big to fail, essentially. I'm not convinced that the government will let Ford go bankrupt or will let them die off. I think they'll be poorly managed. They weren't honestly doing very well before this whole EV transition started. They were already struggling with profitability and with revenue and with vehicle deliveries. And this EV thing isn't helping at all because every EV they sell is another gas vehicle they don't sell. So yeah, I don't expect Ford to be well managed, but I don't think it matters. I think they'll just keep trying to make a product that consumers are happy with, even if it's not profitable. Which is fine. I got no problem with that. Like, all right, if the government wants to subsidize the F-150 Lightning so that customers can buy a cheaper electric truck, then okay, great for the customer. I mean, that's not how I would want the government to treat Ford, but it's out of my control. I can't decide what the government chooses to do. Um, let's see. How many of those peoples have kids on the road trip? We usually rush the gas station and stop at a park, so here's wishing they would put more chargers by parks. Yeah, I was just thinking of Chris from Dirty Tesla. He did a long road trip in his Model X, and he has 2 kids, and they did very, very well. They loved it. Excuse me. Um, let's see. What you think of Comma AI's robot? It's a response to Tesla Bot. I don't know much about it, but I personally am underwhelmed by AI in machine learning. I think that people in the field seem to find it far more game changing and interesting than it actually is. Um, I think it's a hype word, and people basically see it do little things and are convinced that it will apply those same advantages and those same little things to bigger picture things. Like people will plug in AI to a video game or a chessboard or a doja or what was it? Dojo or Dota. That's what it was. They had an AI play Dota, and they were like, "Wow, we trained it to play this certain video game, and it performed so incredibly well. It beat out grandmasters at the video game." And so people see that, and they see what AI does at a less influential thing. Like even the deep fake stuff is like, "Wow, we could train an AI to talk like this person or to animate a face." So it looks really real. It looks super modern and realistic. And they're like, AI is so freaky. It's amazing, this technology and what it can be used for. And then once they try to apply it to something real that would actually make meaningful difference and have a substantial revenue impact or a substantial change in our daily life, like self-driving, like autopilot, and or a humanoid robot being able to walk around and dance and move things and pick things up. Once they actually start to apply it to something that's monetizable, it ends up, actually, it might take a few more years, or we've been trying to get it right, but it's not quite there yet, or we hit another local maximum. So it's one of those things I disagree with Elon on. I know a lot of the time I defend him, so people are like, "You're an Elon fanboy. You just think everything he does is great." It's like I criticize him quite frankly, to be honest. I criticize him quite often. And AI and machine learning is one of those things that I'm like, I understand there's benefits, and I understand that it can do impressive things, but I don't think it's as impressive in the real world to monetizable tasks as people realize. Um, Probably the most monetizable thing machine learning can do is like camera features with photography on smartphones and Google search algorithms or targeted advertising, YouTube algorithm detecting what certain people seem to really enjoy watching and then recommending more of those types of videos. Like I've always been impressed by that. YouTube knows how to recommend me stuff. They're like, "Hey, we think you'll like this," and I always end up finding stuff on YouTube. So that's kind of machine learning in action and something that's monetizable. But um, I personally think the Tesla bot is going to be one of those things that gets delayed far more than FSD. And I know FSD has been delayed a lot, but it's one of those things that's just like infinitely complex, and has like infinite edge cases, and there's so many little bottlenecks and limiting factors they're going to run into. I think the Tesla bot was mostly a marketing tactic. It was mostly a recruitment tool to get more AI software engineers working at Tesla, which is a good thing. I think it's an admirable field to go after. I don't think Tesla's stupid for wanting to try to solve self-driving. I think it's a very great thing to pursue, and we need clever and intelligent minds trying to fix that problem as much as possible, because people die from reckless human driving all the time. But I just think they could be far more realistic on the timelines, and stop acting like you know when it's going to be done, because you do not. No one knows when it's going to be done, and no one knows how to do it. Unix says, "I agree that machine learning and AI are hype words. It's a great factor on who wins a hackathon." Yeah, exactly. Um, Less supercharging stops make road trips more efficient. Right, but they don't necessarily make them more enjoyable. The Concorde could get you to your destination a lot faster, but that didn't make it. That didn't keep it around. Um, we ended up like a lot of people would have thought by the 2020s we would have mainstream supersonic air travel by now, but it was discovered to be far more efficient slash far easier to do uh, slower air travel. That's why all our airplanes are subsonic when you go overseas and stuff. Longer range means that you can go further on your initial residential charge before you have to fast charge at 3 or 4 times the rate. I think I get what you're saying. Thank you for the super chat. Loaded 23 Kia Sportage 36K, hard to justify Model Y. Sure, if that's what you want. Doesn't change the fact that the Model Y is probably selling better than the Kia Sportage. But yeah, get what you want. We need less people buying Teslas because the demand backlog is crazy high. So I'm all in favor of you justifying not buying one. That means I can get mine sooner if at all possible. My wife prefers we take the Tesla on road trips with the 2 kids. Autopilot is essentially your personal chauffeur on long highway trips and removes driving fatigue. That's what I hear a lot of, is people are like, I would much rather do it with the Tesla. I don't know, the latest thing from Google was explaining why jokes were funny. That was pretty impressive. I didn't catch that, but it sounds interesting. Why are jokes funny? Actually, what helps efficiency is consuming less energy per mile. That's why an EV is consuming less energy and costs less to drive. If you add, honestly, on most road trips, I don't think it adds that much time. It's probably a couple extra hours that you save several $100s on, which I would say is worth it. Concord comparisons are not equal. I know they're not exactly equal, but I'm saying the philosophy still stands true. The Concorde cost people more money, but it got you to the destination faster. But very few people were willing to pay the extra money because they would rather take longer to save money. It's the same thing with an EV. It may not get you to your destination as quickly, but if it costs less, more people will do it. And that's why demand is off the charts. Despite range being objectively worse. I think I can say that. EVs on range are objectively worse than most gas cars. And yet they're selling at insane volume. Like we can't build enough. Andrew Hudson super chatted. Thank you. He says, how high do you think the Model 3 price will go? I think it'll continue rising as long as the backlog doesn't go down. So I could see it passing the $50,000 mark in the next few months. Yes. I think that's possible. Yes. Thank you, Andrew. I know not very many people were interested in the subject, but I think it's likely. I do think that if Tesla finds a way to do an all-wheel drive LFP Model 3, they will do it. And I think the demand for it will be high enough that they could easily justify another $55,000 Model 3. The software doesn't factor in destination charging needed after the end of the trip. Well, that's why the mobile connector is worth it. But your gas car doesn't really do that either. You get to your destination in a gas car, you don't get to top off. At least if you go to a friend or family member's house, you can plug in and top off, whereas you get somewhere else at a family and friend's house, you still have to go to the gas station. When I was on vacation in Fiji in January, some businessman there paid $850,000 to get a used Model X 90D imported. Really? My God. That's insane. $850,000 for a Model X. Well, it says a lot about the demand. I keep seeing people take delivery of their new Model X's, and they were like, this is by far the best car I've ever owned. And it's honestly, Teslas, I think, have captured a lot of that like supercar market. Like people who used to buy Lamborghinis and Ferraris. That's the tweet I was reading, was a guy that collected supercars like that. Or at least luxury high-end sports cars. And he was like, I'll take the Tesla any day of the week. It's so much more advanced and so much more enjoyable than my Ferrari or my Lamborghini. So you're getting a lot of that high-end market along with it. New quad motor, standard range LFP Model 3 starting at $60,000. What a deal. Again, like I said, you do not want to be in this demand overwhelmed state where the backlog is this long. It's not a good place. So they're going to keep raising the price as long as there's people willing to pay for it, or there's too many people. The point is, you don't have an extra 40 minutes charge time versus the 3 to 4 minute fill up at the end of your trip. Well, my point is, you can get to your destination and plug in and charge overnight versus at the end of your trip, you have to go find a gas station, which depending on where your friend or family member's house is, that could be further away. I'm not denying that. I feel like you're arguing that gas station less time less good. It's like, okay, there are certain people willing to put up with that as spoken by the demand. You can use waypoints and have your final destination be your first charge station on your return trip, so to get the proper charge to get home and no destination charge. I don't really know what the point of the argument is. At the end of the day, there's still way too many people buying EVs than there is supply for. That's what matters. Tesla bot could do everything right now except walking outside. Right. I'm sure that's the only thing they haven't figured out. Let's see. Tim says, I have a suspicion they slowed down Mach-E sales to keep from running out of the $7,500 tax credit. I guess that's possible. I think it's more likely they just don't know how to build more of them. When Tesla has a chip shortage, they like rearrange their suppliers and find new chips and reprogram those chips and implement them. If Ford runs out of chips, they just give up. They've already proven that. Even with their gas vehicles, they're just like, oh, sorry, I don't know what to do. There's no chips left. So they just stop. I think it's just lazy. What's your thoughts on companies switching their focus more on affordability rather than 0 to 60 and super long range? I don't think any of those factors you listed are super important, really, to the adoption of EVs. It's like, if you increase production capacity, all of those problems will take care of themselves. If you can build more and more vehicles, you can charge less for them because your profit margin can be thinner. So, if your profit margin is $1,000 a vehicle and you sell 100, that'll be the same as $10,000 a vehicle and you sell 10. So if you increase production capacity, you can bring prices down. That's what really should matter. It shouldn't just be lower the price because you can and, apply this tax credit so that it's more affordable. And it's like, just find a way to build more and all of those other problems will take care of themselves. Do you think Tesla will make FSD mandatory and charge you for it? Not in the near future. I don't see that happening, no, because most people buying Teslas don't get FSD. The margins are still really good on the vehicle, but I think the take rate of FSD right now is like 10% or something. It's like 90% of people aren't getting it. But yeah, prioritizing affordability, I think, is kind of the wrong question. The question should be, are you prioritizing scale? Because that's the limiting factor. Because even with Tesla's prices going up and up and up, they're still selling at high volume, and there's still a wait time on all of them. So building more EVs should be what's prioritized. And no, I don't care about the 0 to 60. 0 to 60 is not, I think, a big amount of time and money with EV development. It just happens to be one of the nice perks. It's one of the nice selling points of an EV because the technology fundamentally allows for that. Just by not having a transmission and not having a combustion engine that you have to ramp up. Any EV, even a cheap EV, can be very quick and accelerate very well. So that's just one of the nice added benefits of going with an electric vehicle. I don't think that there's a bunch of time and energy being spent on like, oh, come on, how do we get the 0 to 60 time faster? It's like, it's just a nice little selling point. Excuse me. Be careful of the Kia Sportage. They are having fire issues. I bought one of them, and I've had several recalls. Ooh, yikes. That's not good. How come Cyberpunk and The Witcher aren't on the Plaid yet? I don't know. Elon had a reply on that saying that they were trying to compare finding some one-size-fit-all adapter so that you could basically play any Steam game on the Tesla, or if they should design the games to run specifically native on the Tesla. But that was months ago. Yeah, I don't know what happened to that. Tesla wants to be 20% of the market. I don't really think Tesla cares about market share. I think their goal is to just accelerate the transition, and that's what they're prioritizing. If the competition doesn't catch up and all of their competitors aren't building EVs fast enough, I think they would go further. They would try to be 50% of the market. 0 to 60 is the reason why I bought an EV. Well, it's a nice added perk, but I don't think that was the driving force. We should make an EV because then it'll be faster. It's like, no, you make an EV so it's more efficient, lower cost of ownership, but also it happens to be faster. That's cool too. I don't know what happened to those games though. And Tesla, if Tesla solves full self-driving and they actually develop a software package that can drive anywhere, no geofences, I feel like they would just stop selling cars to people, or at least stop selling many cars to people. Like they definitely would no longer care about selling affordable cars to people. But I think many of you would argue they've already abandoned that idea now. But once you can make a robotaxi, it's going to be so much infinitely cheaper to just and more profitable to just own that robotaxi yourself and collect money off of the ride sharing than it would be to try to sell that vehicle to someone. Granted, you should probably acknowledge that all the vehicles they're building right now are not steer by wire and are not robotaxis. So you'd have a bunch of cars that still have normal brake pedals and steering wheels. So I guess they can't convert all of them to robotaxis immediately, but um, granted they could definitely afford to drive the price way higher. Um, because they would say, well, if you want more affordable EVs, just take a robotaxi. That's their end goal, is to say like the best thing we could do environmentally is make robotaxis that drive people all day instead of a car that drives you to work and then sits in a parking lot for 6 hours and then drives you home and sits in your garage for 12 hours. That's not good for the environment. What they think is better for sustainable energy is a vehicle that goes where it's needed. And if you need it, you hail one and it shows up and then it drives you to where you need to go. Then it drops you off and then it goes somewhere else where it's needed. Um, so you could basically have one EV that's capable of replacing 5 gas cars instead of right now where we have one EV replace one gas car. So no, I don't think anyone's argued that FSD is worth it for for the past several years. Um, the software doesn't factor in destination. Well, it can with a waypoint, yeah. Let me see. Will vehicle to home impact warranty on battery life slash degradation with extra cycles? I don't think it'll impact your warranty, but it would definitely increase the cycle life, yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Because maybe the degradation would be hit sooner. I could see that. I feel like the degradation. What is it right now? Like, doesn't Tesla agree to replace the battery if the degradation is like under 70% before 8 years? I feel like most batteries aren't getting there anyway. I don't know of that many 2170 batteries I've ever seen that were starting to get below 70%. The most degradation is in the first year. So I've seen batteries at 90% or 85 or 80% with heavy usage, but I don't think even with vehicle to grid and using it as a power wall you would get to 70% that much. Honestly, vehicle to grid doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Um, because most of the time you have excess power from solar is in the daytime, which most of the time vehicles are not home during that. But okay, let's say for the sake of the example, your car is home during the day. So with the excess solar energy, it charges up the battery in your car, and then when the sun goes away, you fall back to the car battery to power your house, which drains it over time, which means when you wake up in the morning, your range is lower, but that's normally when people would leave. So the car would be away from the house when it has excess power and wouldn't have a battery to store that excess energy. And the car would come home near the end of the day when you only get a few extra hours of sun. So they mostly level off at 90% after 150, 200,000 miles. Yeah, I don't think a house would add that many cycles I don't think they would need to change the battery warranty. But frankly, I understand why Tesla does not prioritize vehicle to grid very much. It makes sense. It's not very useful the more I think about it. Unless you keep the vehicle home at all times. If you like hardly drive your car, it makes a lot of sense, which is not doesn't seem like a good recommendation. Tesla's right that buying dedicated stationary storage like a Powerwall, like an LFP Powerwall, if they were able to mass produce that at extreme scale and get the price down, that would make far more sense for solar than trying to power your house off your car. Other than that, I guess it's kind of nice during power outages. If you got hit by a power outage and you could power your house with your car for a couple of days, that would be nice. But then when you need to go somewhere, your car's gonna have low battery. So yeah, it's not. It's like now I'm stuck at home because I drained my battery. So hopefully it's like, well, the power outage lasts a couple days, and then the power outage comes back. So then you charge up your car again. Yeah, I don't know. It's not super useful unless you just don't drive your car. But like I've thought, honestly, I've given it a decent amount of thought. Buying an F-150 Lightning to use as a power wall actually could make a lot of sense because they're selling them for uber cheap. I mean, they're losing money on every one they sold. But I would, if I had to buy a truck, I would get the F-150 Lightning Pro with no options. Just get it as close to that $40,000 MSRP as possible, and then just plug it in with your solar package, and now you have like 100 kilowatt hour battery pack to store your excess energy in. That could easily power your home for 2 or 3 days, depending on your usage. Maybe more like a week, because like the Tesla Powerwall is like 13 kilowatt hours. It is not a big battery. So the Ford battery is like what, 5-10 times bigger than the Powerwall battery, and it has that vehicle to grid capability they talked about. So it would be problematic if in the morning, your house had been powered or had used a lot of the energy out of the battery pack. So once the sun rises, your battery's a lot lower. But I don't have much use for a truck. I would not use a truck very often. So I would just use it occasionally, like if I go on a bike ride or I go camping or something, I'd take the truck. But then the rest of the time, just leave it plugged in at the house and let it act as a power wall. Granted, the Lightning is more expensive than a power wall, but um, it's a lot bigger. So yeah, it's not a terrible idea. I saw someone on YouTube suggesting it, but honestly, the higher cycle life of LFP would also make more sense for Powerwall energy storage because you can run a bunch of cycles on it, and because it's just a battery pack that's going to sit in your garage, it doesn't need to be lower weight or higher energy density because it's not traveling. It's just sitting there. So LFP is going to be cheaper and support that kind of thing a lot better. Um, the only way to lower prices is to increase supply beyond demand. Exactly, Oof Dad. Thank you. Exactly. So that's what needs to be prioritized above all else. It's not acceleration. It's not even really affordability. It's not so much about get rid of the leather seats or get rid of the heated seats and use cheaper material and use cheaper and cheaper. It's all really just a battery question of like how many batteries can you build. If you could build more batteries, all the other problems take care of themselves. If you have a larger supply of batteries that can match demand, then you can make a longer range EV for those who want it. You can make a 500 mile range EV. But if you're limited on batteries, it doesn't make much sense to. Um, I thought you bought the same office chair as I did, and I accidentally got the same desk as you, so I'm a little freaked out. Well, I know for a fact you didn't because this was a gift. I did not pay for this chair. My sister got a new one, and she was like, "Hey, I don't want this chair anymore. Do you want it?" And I sat in it, and I liked it. I was like, "Yeah, this is nice." So, my old chair was showing signs of wear. It was squeaking a lot and crumbling on the armrests and stuff. So I was like, "Yeah, I think I need a new office chair anyway." But it is nice. It is nice. I don't know where my sister got it, but it's comfortable and it's a lot lighter and it fits well in here. I'm comfortable with it, but you're the first person to notice it, honestly. Um, yeah, but I think LFP is probably going to enable the most amount of influence on the EV market, both with Megapack and Powerwall switching to LFP, and how easy it's going to be to scale because you don't need the nickel and cobalt in the cathode and that kind of thing. Um, but I think it's also worth mentioning that there is motivation to Tesla prioritizing scale above all else because even with all this growth, right? Even with all these new factories and Ford announcing new EVs and them trying to ramp up production and VW introducing new models and trying to deliver record numbers of EVs, we're still talking about like 4%, 6%, maybe 8% of all car sales. Like even with all this growth, we're still not even at like 20% of all new cars being electric. And the amount of emissions caused by the combustion engine, the amount of carbon emitted just from the infrastructure of supporting gasoline being available everywhere, oil refinery, um, and the complex process of keeping gas stations pumped with gas at all times. There's just so much uh, terrible things that, foreign imports of oil and relying on other countries and the fluctuation of gas and, you know, more dependence on other countries' energy and that kind of thing. There's all these downsides to being so dependent on gasoline. And the faster we can get to all new cars being electric, the better, I think, for the country, for the economy, for efficiency, for the environment, for the atmosphere, for our wallets, for independence when it comes to cost to transport and freedom to transport. Uh, I think there is absolutely the argument that we should be prioritizing scale, and accelerating this transition is very, very important. That's why I don't really I don't really side with the belief that, well, it's like we should, Tesla just cares too much about hitting delivery numbers because they want to please their shareholders, and Lucid's doing it right by prioritizing quality control. And what we should really be doing is making good EVs first, like EVs with high range, or EVs with good quality control, or EVs with high premium feel. And it's like, it's not that I don't care about quality control, and I absolutely hope Tesla can address that and make it better. But if you could only pick one, if you could only pick scale and production ramp versus quality control and luxury or high range, like making the product itself better but making less of that product, I'm going to side with quantity should prioritize quality, should be prioritized over quality. In this business sector, and with the advantages of switching to electric and getting more and more people switched over, um, quantity does matter more here at this time. In the future, if we're already all switched to electric, then sure, I can understand whoever makes the most quality EVs. Yeah, that argument changes. But right now, there's far more of a urgency and reasons to prioritize clean energy, and focus on replacing as many gas vehicles as possible, not trying to make the best vehicle possible, like the one with the most luxurious seats, and the one with the most comfortable ride height, or the one with the most premium materials that you interact with. It's like, okay, that's great, but I'm not going to advocate as to why that's a better way to enter this market. Um, any chance you could point the camera towards the armrests? I don't know. Can I? They look like this. They're like glossy steel, I guess. It's nice. It doesn't lean back as much as I would like. I want to lock it in place a bit more reclined, but it doesn't quite do it. Yeah, I don't know. Any chance you could do a Fremont factory delivery for your Model 3? That would make a cool video. I'd like to, but it wasn't an option. They asked me when I bought my car. They were like, enter your address so we can see if you qualify for home delivery. There wasn't like I don't want to do home delivery, let me pick it up myself. That wasn't a thing. It was just like, enter your address. So I entered it, and they said, you do not qualify for home delivery. Select your delivery location. And there were 2 service centers or delivery centers that I could choose from. There was no point at the checkout process that was like pick up from factory or pick up out of state or something like that. We do have the same chair. Great. But I've been to the Fremont factory. It's cool. That's where I first saw a refreshed Model S. I was supercharging at the Fremont factory with Model Y Mike. But yeah, I would have liked to do one, but I don't know how, and that's okay, because no matter where I pick up my Tesla, I'm gonna have to drive a gas car. So I hate driving my gas car, and I don't like driving great distances with it right now. I have to right now because I don't have any other choice, but I would like to drive the smallest possible distance to get to my Tesla. Um, so I selected my nearest possible delivery center. Um, just became a member of the Patreon. As promised, looking forward to having you on the Best Phone Plans channel. What? Dennis? Did you become a big tier? You have to call SA and let them know for a factory pickup. That's what I'm doing. Oh, okay. That's that's a big that's a big call. Oh my god, you did. Oh my goodness. We have a new member of our enhanced no, we have a new member of our executive Tesla fund, Dennis P. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. That seriously helps out a ton. Um, but I'm coming on the Best Phone Plans channel. Awesome. I think I've heard of that one. That's fun. I'll look forward to the collab. I'll direct message you, but that reminds me, I just want to thank everyone who's been supporting the channel, helping me out. We have Matt S., who I've yet to add to the list, but Matt S. has been supporting. Joshua Vidic, Martin Turner, Wojciech Kaminsky, Planet Text, Dr. Mark Choi, who's a dentist in the Woodland area, Bennett Williams, Dylan Zimmer, Jacob Halbach, and Joshua Levitsky. Everybody, seriously, it's quite amazing seeing the support and people that are willing to help out. And that's awesome, Dennis. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I can guarantee you all the money generated from this channel over the past 8 months, 9 months, 10 months is all going towards the Tesla. And yeah, it's I've never been more excited for a purchase in my life. I'm very comfortable saying that because I know the excitement I feel for other products, and I've bought this house even, and I was not as excited as I am for this car. Just so ready to stop paying for gas. I'm so ready to just activate autopilot on the highway. I think about it every second I'm driving, and I'm very, very much looking forward to taking road trips with it. And I just having a modern vehicle, something that feels like it was built this century. I know my car wasn't built in the 20th century, but it still feels like it's abiding by 20th century design and 20th century laws and that kind of stuff. Wow. Oh, and you should become a moderator because you're a executive. So thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. That's very generous of you. Um, yeah, I don't think I'll call for a factory pickup. It's just gonna mean I have to drive 3 times as long to get to my car, and I don't want to have to wait that much longer. Um, I'd rather just get the car as soon as possible and come home. So that's my plan anyway. But yeah, I'm very flattered by everyone's support. Seriously, like um, this is kind of a dream job of mine, and I love speculating and talking about EVs and uh, thinking about what Tesla's going to do. And I do think that even when specs are disappointing or the pricing is disappointing and that kind of thing, it's still exciting to think about what's to come and how far things have changed. Um, Sorry for the lag again. T-Mobile's wigging out, but just to think about how much more transitioning basically there is to be done in the automotive space is very much exciting. And all the new startups as well. Like, I think I cannot watch enough Rivian videos. Have I talked about Rivian today? Probably not enough, but basically every video there is on the Rivian I watch. If it YouTube knows how my algorithm works, if someone uploads a video on the Rivian, I watch it because that's just such they've built such an amazing product. Just the interior design is so well tuned to their ethos of just nature and blending in with the environment, um and the gear tunnel and the air compressor and the bike locks, even down to the hinges of the rack, is just so well engineered. And Aptera, I'm so excited for them to hit the market and to make these extremely efficient vehicles that can literally just drive around from the power of the sun. They literally just sit in sunlight and can travel miles and miles based on that sunlight. It's just incredible technology that I love driving, and I love reading about, and I love talking about, and I'm really happy with the people watching in the community, and even people that are obsessed with the little details as much as I am, like talking about Cybertruck charge port design and interior design and swiveling screen mounts, and those kind of little details are fun for me, and I'm glad that they're fun for other people as well. Um, since you're talking about electric cars, what are your thoughts on the other manufacturers like Ford? I don't think they're doing it as intelligently as Tesla is. I think they should be using less batteries per vehicle, um, and I think that they should prioritize efficiency more and scaling production more. But Ford is doing a lot of the right things. It sounds like there's this upcoming new electric truck that's very different from the F-150 Lightning that is going to have high range and prioritize efficiency, which I'm in favor of. So I think they're doing a lot better than GM. Like Ford seems to care about EVs more so than GM or Toyota does. The latest Toyota EV is terrible at charging. It's got a joke of a charging curve, and the range isn't very good, and the price isn't that great. Ford does better than most, but not the best in terms of EVs. But I do I do think they're probably making the right call with the F-150 Lightning. Canoe is the best boy. Of course, Mike's a big fan of Canoe. I like Canoe as well. I just don't get as excited, I guess, as Aptera or Rivian, perhaps. But um, I still want to see Canoe reach it to market, just because they have such a different, unique approach towards a practical vehicle. So yeah, there's just so much to look forward to, and so many things I'm excited for. So I'm very flattered and humbled, and I just want to say thank you to Dennis, and of course everybody who's supporting directly and watching the videos, and watching the streams and tuning into the podcast. All of that is just making my dreams come true. And as long as there's people willing to watch, I'll keep making it. So I thank you for watching, and hope you all have a excellent rest of your day. Take care, all. Have a good one. Bye bye.